Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to month 4 of the Chakra Immersion, and we are at the place of the heart chakra. So what I'm going to do is give us an introduction into this beautiful space. Our general themes for this section are expansion, compassion, and service. And note that I didn't just put service by itself, but service to self and others. Just want to be sure that that's what we're all talking about when we talk about service. So the quote that I think of with the heart chakra is one in which, I had read this book years ago called The Little Prince, Le Petit Prince. And there was a beautiful quote inside, which was, "What is essential is invisible to the eye. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly." So that quote really speaks to the emotional wisdom that the heart holds, and how if we go with our heart, I think that phrase is so commonly used: go with your heart, move with your heart, live with your heart, live out your heart's passions. And I think that for so many of us, we have different ideas as to what the heart actually means. It's like a spectrum. It's like anything else. And one of the things that I'm sure you read in the email introduction is that my core teaching philosophy is looking at the collective, looking at systems, looking at how systems work with each other. And so not putting the heart up on a pedestal per se and saying that from the heart all else arises, really looking at the heart in the context of the other systems. And much of the heart space is really that connection into the flow, bringing up the flow's emotion into the heart's wisdom of experience and knowing. And so really, like, it's almost like every chakra is built upon the other one. And so there is this dynamic, and it's not even that they're sequentially built, they're collectively built. And I know it's difficult for a linear mind to think like that, but the way I see it is that they are melded together. And so when we talk of one chakra, we are really just pulling it out from the web to kind of take a look at it, and then we let it go and it coalesces into our entire being. And so when we say that love is all there is, we are still in a physical reality. And within that physical reality, we need to operate with our whole self. And so love is essential. It is essential to our existence, and probably even more so for the non-physical parts of us. What I don't want us to lose sight of is how all of the chakras come together in really building and blossoming who we are. So that's my take on it. And so, yes, this is a powerful quote. It speaks to the beauty of the heart. And again, when I think of really divining into that heart space, what I think of it as is we are, again, pulling it up from the collective of our being, which is further held within the collective of all of our consciousness and our realities, and then allowing it to drop and feeling that throughout the whole. Because we can feel the heart within the root, we can feel the heart within the flow, we can feel the heart within the fire, and we can feel all of those three within the heart. So it's not like, and I know it's in some ways it's difficult to think about it conceptually, because we are looking at each system, each chakra as we go, and kind of looking at it in isolation. But I want us to remember that, at least this is my teaching philosophy, that one is not more important than the other, that they're an interdependent circuit, each with their own gifts and offerings to the entirety of our being. If we look at Manami Lingerfeld's painting, she, again, the way that I commissioned this art was to give her a number of the different terms that I connected the heart space to, and then she fulfilled on those words with some kind of creative construct. So here we have why the being with this Zen-like pose. Here she is being firmly rooted and anchored downward. And you can see that nice triangle going down, which is then the heart being grounded into the heart, into love. having service and having all of these diamonds. So the shape for the heart chakra, in my way of teaching, is it's the diamond. It's shiny, much like Manipura, the solar plexus chakra, which is just a brilliant, radiant beacon of light. This is similarly a gem. Each of the chakras are a gem, and this one is the emerald, and it's cut in such a way that we have the two parts going up and out into the non-physical parts of us, and the parts of us that are physical going down and into the earth. And we can see that as we go down and in, we can see the vegetables, things that are physical. And then as we go up and out, it is the things that it connects to the things like what radiates up and out into the sky, which is why she has wings on, because here we have the element of air. Why do we have the element of air? Because married to the lungs, we have the heart. Married to the heart, we have the lungs. And so those two organ systems are intimately connected. So we oxygenate the blood through the lung activity, and then we carry that oxygen to every part of our being through the systemic circulation. So it's a beautiful place, isn't it? That art, to imagine ourselves really seated in the throne of our emotional wisdom. So the love system of health, and if you just, again, scan this quickly and go to wherever your eye wants to rest. And perhaps that's where your heart chakra is, or at least is needing some of that. Mine just went to microgreens. I was really connected into that microgreens, which makes sense because I've been kind of obsessed with microgreens lately. See where you go. If you just kind of radiate through all of these words in kind of a very unconscious, subconscious kind of way, just see where you get connected and write those words down. So the love is so much. It is physical, much like all the other chakras. We've got physical elements, we have non-physical elements, we have the symbolic. If we look at the anatomy, we're talking the upper body where the heart is. And so we've got the armpits. Let's not forget those precious armpits. We've got the arms, an extension of the heart chakra. And we even have the hands, the fingers. And it's so appropriate because if we go to think of hugging somebody, we're enrobing them and keeping them within the space of our heart chakra. So a hug is powerful medicine. We are connecting heart to heart. And to use that in such a way to think of where we do want intimacy and where it's not in its proper place, right? To kind of see the spectrum of that. Blood vessels, and that includes the capillaries, the arteries, the veins, kind of the broader circuitry of blood vessels. I just kind of lump it all together there. The breasts, so nurturing, breast tissue, the lymphatics kind of coming through this system, especially under the arms, but also we get some in the neck that come on down. Obviously the heart and the heart chambers, the lungs, which I've already spoken to, and all of the little bronchioles, all of the little air sacs that receive that air, receive that oxygen, much like the blood vessels receiving the blood. The shoulder space. And so, it's like this whole area. In the thymus is up here. The heart in and of itself is a neuroendocrine gland. So it's like this upper band of who we are. If we were to stretch ourselves out, it's that upper band. So it's everything that connects in. And then as we get into the throat chakra, we'll start talking about like the neck up, but we're talking neck down. And if we were to draw a circle around our neck and just say everything from that space down to where the fire chakra starts, so just right to that level of the diaphragm. So I'm not mentioning the ribs, but the ribs are part of that too, just like part of the spine. It's the whole upper cavity. Okay, so what are the acts of physiology? Breathing, circulation, oxygenation. We're going to get into nutrients in week 3 and be talking about all things green, the healing power of green in nature and how these things help us to expand. whether it's leafy greens, which look at a leaf very close and you're going to see the circulatory system. The microgreens, the little blood vessels, what carries the energy and the oxygen. Phytonutrients, those properties of nature which connect to love and expansion now within the cell, creating communication within our cells. So when we think of somebody who is living within their heart chakra space, it is somebody who has a heart full of passion for a cause. They're open to self-love as well as love of others, and that is in balance. We're going to bring up balance from the solar plexus chakra, the fire system, up into this space as well, because so many people have an imbalanced love system where they are not living their heart's passions or they're giving too much to others. It's like it's over the top and it's not balanced. And then they come back in bitterness because they don't feel like they've been reciprocated and they expect to have that in return and didn't get it in return. That could happen in so many different outlets, whether it is work, whether it is relationships, that could be intimate relationships, partner relationships, it could also be friendships. And so we are going to look at balance. Balance threads throughout all of the chakras, of course. And so we're going to be looking at how this energy part of us is balanced or not. How do we receive compliments and give compliments? Is that in equal measure? So the matrix, I've been presenting these for each of the different chakras so far. So if we start at the top and think of the energy of if we just focus on the energy of this space, what is it about? Well, it's about expansion, breathing, nurturing with the breaths, harmonizing. The heart space is a healing space. And so when I think of harmonization, I think of healing at various levels. Acceptance and serving and servitude. And so we kind of take these broad level energy characteristics and we distill them into things that are physical, grounded into the reality in which we live. And I always want to bring us back into the physical reality. As we move up this tree of chakras, we're going to become less and less connected, it's going to seem. So I'm going to be the friendly guide and reminder to say, let's bring it back down. Let's bring it back down. I've had some really great teachers, whether Carolyn Mace, I've also studied in person with a woman in Minneapolis by the name of Patrice Connolly. I studied with her for a year out of her home. She's an intuitive. And one thing that both of those teachers have taught me is to connect to the physical reality as much as possible. Many people, because of trauma or other things, we want to move up and out of that. And so we feel really cozy and comfy in the love space, but we don't feel so cozy and comfy in the root space. Yet if we can start to see them less as separate and more as conjoined, I think that we will experience greater healing. So we are going to experience this whole matrix throughout our 4 weeks of being together in the love system. Now, one of the beautiful conjoining factors of root to love is nature. Because we did talk about the roots of nature, root vegetables. And so now we've got the root as it relates to the love, which is the leaves of a plant, the extensions of a plant. And there is so much great evidence out there now looking at the health benefits of being in nature. So much that tickles and ripples through all the other chakras, all of our other body systems, everything from reduced stress to better sleep, improved mental health, greater happiness and well-being, which is pretty profound if you think of it. And reducing all of these different other conditions, which are more physical in nature. So there's something to be said for having contact with nature, whether that means being on the ground and just taking a walk, but also looking up and out. I remember studying with another one of my teachers, a shamanic teacher, Shar Sundust, and somebody had mentioned that they couldn't get to a park, that, she had wanted us to be in nature for at least an hour a day. And this person was saying, I live in the city, I can't get to a park. And she said, don't forget, you've always got the sky above your heads, wherever you are. we are a part of nature. So even if it's just looking at a picture of nature, that's going to bring forward and help us to expand into all of nature. And there are so many different ways to get it. So this is for you a spectrum of different ways to bring more nature into your existence. And as you do this, you know, one of the things I love to do is I like to buy flowers every week. When I used to live in Europe, in the Netherlands, they're all about flowers. And so I'd go to the outdoor market and they would have all these flower vendors. And so I would buy flowers. They were very inexpensive. It was something affordable that gave me a lot of joy. And so even now it's like, oh my gosh, Deanna, you've fallen away from buying flowers at the open market. And so within the past year or so, I've been a bit more diligent about making sure that we have fresh flowers at home in the kitchen where Mark and I can see the flowers, we can connect, it brightens our day. It's something small. We live in a natural setting, so I don't feel like I need more nature in that way. I feel like I'm blessed with that. But what is it about nature that you really connect, like what opens your heart? And for me, flowers is, I mean, they're just such a great means to have more of that expansion quality. So I want for you to figure out what that is. Maybe your expansion is taking a nice high power, fiery walk in which your breathing changes. You're out in nature, you're doing some hiking, or even you're walking along a lake. Maybe you're walking on the beach. Maybe you decide to sign up for a camping trip. Maybe you're coming on the retreat, the Insight Retreat with me. I know several of you are. So that is definitely a dipping into nature in a very healing, nourishing way. So what are the themes that we're going to be focused on for this month? Physically, we're going to be focused on breath and blood. These are the two substances within us that connect to the heart chakra. So our breath, our chi, our prana, our blood, our life force, what delivers nutrients and oxygen and takes away toxins. Now, the red blood cells themselves are definitely part of the root. The circulation, the movement through blood vessels, and the connection and expansion of that circuitry to the rest of the system is love. So you're going to see how there's a braiding together of many of the different chakras or systems, as I like to think about these energy organs of us and how they come together. Again, they are not in isolation. We need to somehow start to dismantle isolationist, siloed thinking and to start seeing life in a very Aquarian collective. We are being called to do that in this time and space. We are living in a time and space of unification and collective systems thinking, which is why we're seeing that so much in medicine. Yes, we have personalization, and then there's an honoring of how that personalization is connecting into the system's web and into a broader spectrum of looking at patterns, pattern recognition. So I know I keep bringing us back to this. This is, I believe it's important as we go through these in sequence. The heart and how it is full and bursting of passion. And if it's not, how do we take the fire and ignite it and bring it up? And it's almost like remembering, you know, what did you want to be at the age of when you were very young, you know, and how did that passion that was cultivated in your root upbringing and your growth, how did that eventually manifest in your 20s, let's say, which is the life line, or the, if we think of each of the chakras as a decade, as I do, we are now moving into the 30s, where now we've had some experience and we kind of look back a little bit and say, where is our passion? Are we living our life's passion? The 30s is a very reflective time because the dust starts to settle a bit. You know, the education, the family building, all of the things that we might have been involved with are starting to come to a leveling where we can sit on the throne within our heart and start to reflect a little bit more on how are we now truly living our life's passions. This is like when the midlife crisis might come up. Are we living it? And if we're not, oh my gosh, how do we get into that that vein of flow within our lives? How do we actually tap into that passion if we're not already? Devotion and dedication. I love these two words. They really speak to me. Just the element of devotion and how we can be devoted to a cause, we can be devoted to a person, we can be devoted to a family, we can be devoted to a space, to a pet. It is an act of selflessness, as is dedication. What do we want to dedicate our lives to? And so maybe even writing down what I'm sensing intuitively is just, I also feel like these words are very resonant with many of you in the group. And to even do a little bit of journaling on it, like what am I devoting my energy to? So it's like taking the fire, where we did kind of where do we get energy from, what takes it away? And now we think of that within the filter of the heart. Where does my heart feel energized and passionate and expanded? And you can even notice how your body changes when you talk about something. And I was taught many years ago in terms of giving a talk, people that talk from the heart, they speak in that way of keeping the hands around the heart. There's so much here. Whereas if we're bending over, we have constriction and hurt, resentment and bitterness in the heart. It's not able to expand and open wide and actually devote its energy up and out. Nurturing and caring. Yeah, the heart space is, again, whether we're providing breast milk or the milk of our time, the milk of our existence as we spend with people. And for some people, they don't have money, so they spend time. And it's a valuable currency in which it's one of the 5 languages of love, right? Is spending time. And maybe there can be other ways that we nurture and care by giving words that are complimentary or compliments in general, or maybe it's acts of service, which we will get to. And maybe some of those acts of service come back onto ourselves. How do we serve ourselves first and foremost? And so we're going to have a lot of this discussion of self-love, what that means versus being perceived as selfish, which, just even for me growing up in a very restrictive household that was Catholic, it was kind of this thing of, if you're not doing something for somebody else, you're considered selfish. And that comes back on you. And it just creates a lot of shame. It's like, I don't want to be selfish. And so how do we come from that place of accepting who we are and really truly loving ourselves without all of the dogma, the shame, the guilt that may have been tethered into us because of societal beliefs and upbringing? So we'll be looking at that. Compassion and empathy. So really coming from a deep well within us of looking at how can we tap into that reserve of sharing some of our heart and really relating with others through a shared experience of life. So I will, I'll bring out some of the research on compassion fatigue. What does it even mean to be empathic? So let's noodle on that a bit and start to share in those thoughts of what does it look like when we are healthfully compassionate? What does it look like when we're healthfully empathic? And how do we do that with boundaries? Let's bring in the root. There's such a strong, there are strong connections between all of the chakras, of course. And one that I seem to come up against over and over again is truly the root and the love. How both of those two chakras, those systems, how they're interrelating. And I think that one needs the other one, truly, because you can't be all root because it'll just be too structured and there's no feeling and dynamism. And so the love brings in the softness to help the root to yield to what is in service to itself. Expansion and embrace. I made expansion one of the key words for the love system because it's expansion of blood vessels, it's expansion of the body, it's expansion of the heart, it's expansion through feelings, circulation all the way to our fingertips so that we are warm and not cold, and then expanding into our lives. And so really looking at the physical and the life symbolism of expansion and thinking of that expansion even within a physical embrace. But then also, what do we embrace as our beliefs, as our core philosophies? Who do we embrace? All the meanings of these words. I want us just to kind of like jumble them up, not even to like think of them in a very structured way, but just to let them, just breathe them in and to feel where they sit within our being, whether our energy being or our more physical being. Giving and being generous, generosity. This is a big one. So how many times have we felt that we wanted to give something to somebody and we didn't expect anything in return? And that can be a very healthy place. When we give with expectation, so giving in order to get something, and that might mean getting a gift in return, a physical gift, or getting a compliment, or getting more self-worth because of feeling like we're giving something in order to get. We can talk about that dynamic as it relates to the love system. I want to hear what all of you feel about that and what your experience has been around that. Gratitude and grace, and let me add to this other G, grief. I think that they all really network together. Gratitude, grace, and grief. Grief being not an emotion of the heart, being what the heart space goes through as a process. The act of grace, the act of having divine love and having that pour through our life experiences, as well as gratitude. What do we hold gratefulness for, and how do we bring that into something as small as the eating experience, or even saying thank you to other people? All the many ways that just is felt through our being and how beautiful it is. Sharing and service, getting into all realms of service. And that's why I made service one of the key features of week 1, service to ourselves as well as to others, and having that in harmony and healing, which gives us kind of the crux of what all of the chakras are about. But there's something really quite remarkable as it relates to healing and harmony within this love space. If we think of compassion, we think of relating to others within that emotional wisdom space. We think of health professions as they relate to healing and working from the place of the heart. We look at heart disease being the #1 killer in most countries. There's something here to be healed in the heart as much as healing holds gifts for the heart, is my sense. So your activities for this first week, and I want us to take a nice little gentle toe into this sacred space. And I want you to go with what you feel here, as I do always. So these are ideas. So the activities that I have here would be to delve into that space by first visualizing it. Start to draw your heart space without any preconceived ideas of what the heart space holds for you. It doesn't even have to be in that traditional heart shape. Simply start creating your heart space, and do that in more of a meditative state if you can. Since we're on the 4th chakra, let's do everything with 4 if we can. So 4 minutes, a nice 4-minute meditation, after which you start to draw or use crayons, whatever you need to use in order to create your heart space. Second thing that I have listed here is to pay attention to your body space and notice your posture. We often overlook this. We're living in the age of technology and computers, and so being hunched over on our phones, being hunched over at the computer, and so like, oh yes, up and out. How is our posture? Do we feel tightness? Where do we feel that tightness? And maybe even doing some light movement in this area, treating yourself to a nice massage in this area, just getting a back massage, a chair massage even, having somebody massage your fingers, your hands, and all of the stiffness in our wrists that we might hold. So and also noting how you feel when you start to open your shoulders. So if you don't have the time or the wherewithal for a massage, really reflecting on this for yourself and doing some stretching. And as you do that, how do you feel when you open up that space? I'm sure it's very different. See what that is like. And then to allow for more of the color green to come in. So allowing yourself to walk in a green area, walk on green grass, be around green trees, look at green plants, wearing the color green, and as much as you can to really connect into your breath, since this is the air element. So doing nice breathing meditations, paying attention to your breath. How fully do you take in oxygen? How fully do you let out oxygen? So we talked a bit about the flow and breath and movement within us with the flow. And this is a very deliberate focus and concentration on the breath. And through the breath, rippling through our lower chakras, feeling the fire through that digestive circuit, feeling the flow through that movement, and anchoring that breath all the way down to the root. As far as videos and readings, I have an intro, very short intro video if you would like to watch an overview of many of the same concepts that I've been talking about. If you do have whole detox, this would be chapter 6, which focuses on all things love. So you'll see the research of that as well as the practical application. And I wanted to bring in a little bit more of some activities here. So there is a video of music. So you can have that music playing. It's a certain frequency that resonates to the heart chakra space. As far as journaling, what I was reflecting on that would be really nourishing is if you took the drawing that you made of your heart space, and then again to be in a meditative space after you've made it for 4 minutes, and to journal for 4 minutes on your impressions. How does this heart space speak to you? How is it passionate? How does it reflect that in everyday life? What are some of the words, the colors, the ideas that it would like to give you? And I'm going to do this with you. I haven't done this in a while. It's an activity that was given to me by my shamanic teacher years ago, I think back in 2006, when we were doing a lot of this deep heart work. And we created our heart space, and then how do we dialogue with that space? And I think often as we move into the non-physical, we need to bring it into the physical to make it visible to connect to with eyes, with our senses. So see how that goes for you. See what you come up with. And then if you have chosen to have a partner this month, and I've already seen that some of you have requested partners, which is fabulous, spend an hour where each of you have 30 minutes to share on all things about your heart. You know, that's a guideline. You can go wherever you need to go. And some of you, I happen to have learned that a few of you are meeting every week to talk with your partner. You're really forming such strong bonds and relationships. That said, you can also start fresh and work with somebody completely new who you've never worked with before, and dive into the heart space together. There we go. Welcome to the love. Welcome to all things heart and passion and expansion and compassion. It's going to be a very full month, and we're going to enjoy it. And hopefully you'll feel that nourishment. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.